which is the draft preventing and combat of abuse in the SCM system, preventing and combating abuse in the supply chain management system. Let me get that title right. This is a draft instruction that was issued. The feedback is meant to be in by the 14th, if I'm not mistaken. Although I do know that a number of people were requesting extensions to that. I don't know if anyone has received feedback from National Treasury as to whether that closing date has indeed been extended. But we do have a day and a half to really get some feedback through to Treasury on this one. Very significant. And you'll see now the number of instructions, circulars, practice notes that this is going to do away with. And it's all to try and put in place measures to prevent and combat abuse in the SCM system. Now, what is very, very significant, and I'm just going to cast my eye over the people that are online today. Very significant. I can't see many. Certainly, Mbali, this is applicable to you. This has not been applicable previously to Schedule 2s. So all Schedule 2s and 3s are going to need to comply with this one. So very, very significant in many ways. And there are a huge number of instruction notes and practice notes and circulars that this is going to do away with. The main one being the Instruction Note 3 of 2016-2017, which was the original one around preventing and combating abuse in the SCM system. Also 32 as well, there was that circular that came out that postponed a particular section within 32, and that related to SPD 4 as well. Practice Note 7, which was the one that actually originally put out SPD 4, that is going to be repealed. Practice Note 5 around the restriction of supplies is going to be repealed. The Practice Note on SPD 9 is going to be repealed, and the practice note on SPD 8 is going to be repealed as well. So very significant in 7 different instructions and practice notes and circulars that will be repealed as a result of this particular instruction. So these are the different sections that are relevant, and I'm going to just quickly now open the open the draft instruction. I'm going to get that to you now and share that with you shortly, and then just work through it. But you can see there that the main sections are the register of complaints, the investigation of complaints and allegations of abuse, and not major changes here that I can see. I need to do another careful comparison between this and the original instruction, but I don't think there's any huge issues here. Please, if there's anyone that wants to chip in when we go through this, I would welcome that. Certainly, Section 5 is very significant, and the treatment of disclosure and declarations. And there is a draft attachment, which is a revised and consolidated SPD 4, 8, and 9. One of the key things to bear in mind is that we mentioned early on that this applies to Schedules 2 and 3. Schedules 2 and 3 have not previously had to use SPD 4, 8, or 9. Some of them have done it, but this now is a mandatory requirement of the Schedule 2s and 3s. At all 3s. Restriction of persons from doing business with government, I didn't see any significant issues there. This is certainly one that is going to be welcome in some quarters and disappointing in other quarters, which is the treatment of deviations. I certainly welcome the principles that they've included here. Again, the expansions or variations of contract, they've certainly tied up a big issue which was not clear in the expansions or variations. And then very interesting again is the operations and attendance of bid committees. And you'll see that again as we go through this. Again, this is in the context of the applicability of this to the Schedule 2s and 3s, stating that 2s and 3s will have to now have bid committees. The 3 bid committees that are discussed in the instruction. Procurement without a budget and the information to be submitted to the relevant treasuries, not really significant, but certainly important. So let me switch now to the actual instruction, and then we'll go through that and talk through that and what it says. So I hope you can see that now. I'm going to just quickly run through a couple of points here. I'm going to ignore the background, quite important, but it does point out the whole focus or applicability, that this is applicable to the Schedule 2s and all the Schedule 3s. There's the register of complaints. I'm not going to go into that. They do include the Annexure A, which is the format of that register of complaints and allegations. I think there's going to be a far greater emphasis on this in audits as when this is included. And then there's the investigation. Not very different. There are some subtle changes in here, but not very significant in terms of what I saw. Let me just pause there before I get onto the next section. Anyone want to add any points around the register of complaints and the treatment of, I see there is a hand. Please, you're welcome to unmute.
Hi, Sean. Just something from a municipality. Are there any indication when this will filter through to local government, or am I missing something?
How do you know? There's nothing, and I've not seen a draft at all either that was issued for local government. I think there's still some work that needs to be done on local government to first get the revised thresholds out on the quotations. And I think that's certainly going to be the next one that we'll take focus on in local government. So I think nothing yet, but I think it will be of interest to you to just keep ahead of what's going on here, Harmi.
Thank you.
Harmi,
No, I
all
will,
right.
because maybe there are also best practices that we could implement already.
There certainly are. Good one. Thanks, Harmi. All right, let's. Anyone want to add anything on the 2 points that they may have seen in both the register and the investigations process? Anything new? Anything that you think needs to be discussed or people need to be made aware of? Hey, Richard. Go ahead, Richard, and then Lindiwe.
Thank you. I'm looking at point 3.3.
3.3, yes.
Yeah, where it says, I'm wondering whether are they meaning, the meaning there is that the complaint should come from the aggrieved or a tenderer, or is that for an official? And why I'm asking this is that does National Treasury has, sort of like the capacity to handle even relevant complaints that will be coming to them in terms of administrative action or anything and that process of within 14 days. And I've realized that also they have extended their investigation process as the National Treasury to align to the 60 and the 90 days. I mean, it doesn't help anybody. If I'm an aggrieved tenderer, how does this process help me? Because the tender will, and I'm also wondering whether during that investigation, which is in 4.2, 4.1.1 and 4.1.2, the period that they have outlined is also 60 days and 90. And I'm wondering whether during that investigation, is the accounting officer going to proceed with the procurement process, which might result into an award? And there's a pending investigation on that award. How will that award be affected and all that? So for me, I would say that my comments would be that we need to look at this and align it to other processes, because if one looks at the 60 days as opposed to whatever that has been specified as a validity period in that tender document, they might find themselves wanting on this process. So that's my 2 cents worth of contribution to that. Thank you.
Good point, Richard. Thank you. Let's hear from Lindiwe and then I'll respond. Hey, Lindiwe. All right. Lindiwe, you raised your hand. Let's go to Tundi then. Tundi?
Thanks.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, sorry, Tundi. Okay, I was saying that when I look at 3.1, I do appreciate the fact that they are allowing us to be independent as institutions to establish our own system that will deal with. Yeah, but then, however, based on experience which happened recently, is that I'm of the strong view that this is an instruction note of SCM, and these complaints, they have to do with SCM. So I was expecting that maybe to a larger extent, they will provide clarity in terms of who in the institution, for example, must be accountable for this register of complaints, because I'm of the strong view that if it's SCM related, we as SCM, we cannot keep that register, because if the complaints are SCM related, then we will be conflicted. For example, in our institution, we've already contacted a governance a section which deals with reporting and ethics. And from the response that we have received, it looks like there's a reluctance for them to keep this register. So what I'm saying is that normally or generally in institution, people are shying away from having to do with anything that has to do with supply chain management. So it would have been better if maybe a guidance, I'm not saying that they must instruct us how to manage our institutions, but guidance provided in terms of ideally within an institution, which business unit should keep this register of complaints, because from the past experience, internal audit was also reluctant to be responsible for this. So what I'm saying is that I will feel uncomfortable if this register is managed within SCM, because the complaints will be SCM related. Thank you.
Good one, Lindiwe. Please, everybody, just on this one, we've got an opportunity to give feedback to Treasury. So let's use this this opportunity. In the email I sent out yesterday, we'll come to you now, Tundi. I did include all the attachments that were sent by Treasury. So don't hesitate to include some feedback to Treasury on these things. They are obliged to respond to every comment that they do get. Hi, Tundi, go ahead.
Thanks, John. You know, Treasury, they have a tendency when they issue these things, I don't know whether they check the legislation or what, because you remember Triple PFA on the reasons for cancellation a tender. You can actually cancel a tender if there's any irregularities or maybe fraud and corruption or whatever the case may be. I'm tapping on the previous speaker before, Lindiwe, who was talking about what happens if there's this matter and then does the tender then continues. But then when do you then decide to cancel? Do you cancel on the allegation, or do you cancel after the outcome and what do you do in between? Because I think that should be more aligned also with Triple PFA on the cancellation of the tender. I understand these complaints, but those complaints would have to be investigated, and some complaints could be very material actually, whereby it's alleged that certain people maybe could be involved in some corrupt activities. So I'm really hoping that there could be some balance of some sort with that section of the Triple PFA. Thank you.
Good, Thandi. Yes. Any other points? Let me just respond. Firstly, the issues that they've outlined here, Richard, on 3.3. This is where the allegation relates to a member of the board or the accounting officer in a particular institution, where they have been alleged to have abused the system. That must then be reported to Treasury. So this is relating to, in a way, to Lindiwe's point that you do want to get it out of the jurisdiction of the organization where the accounting authority or the accounting officer has been potentially fingered in the abuse, and that will then go to Treasury. I think the current instruction is 7 days, so I think this has been extended to 14. And it's a tough one, and I don't think that this helps at all, Lindy, with the points that you've raised. It's always been an issue as to where and who is responsible for this register of complaints and the management of this register of complaints, and just the simple your decision then to say, hey, it looks like the CEO, or it looks like the DG is implicated in this. We're going to now communicate this to the relevant Treasury. That's always been an issue as to who then communicates this kind of information. And so, yes, some guidance certainly would be appreciated, I think, from Treasury on those points. I think that these sections around the 30 calendar days and then being able to escalate it to 60, I think these all relate to PAJA and the requirement from a PAJA perspective that if somebody does believe that they have been unjustly treated in a process, then they have the right to a written response. And I think that is that's where this 90-day thing comes in. So it's 60 days and then 90 days, and then the whole question that you raise around when do you cancel, and do you stop the process? It's all going to be at the discretion of the people that are running this process at the time. Let's just see if, I think, Thandi, did you raise your hand again? Okay, so yeah, good points. I think there's a lot more that can be done to just guide institutions on this particular one. The point that Thandi raised around cancelling a bid, I think the fourth reason to cancel a bid in the Triple PFA is material irregularity. And certainly I think the issues here, Thandi, is that it might be an alleged material irregularity. It may not yet be a material irregularity. And I think that's the big issue that needs to be addressed in some way. But it's giving a lot of discretion to the public entity to manage this. All right, let's jump into 5, which is the treatment of disclosures and declaration.